Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Decode. Today, I'll be answering one of our top founder questions on how do you figure out what is the right messaging for your particular startup, product, and service. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. My name is Shuo Chen. I am a former founder, now investing in founders and teaching founders at Berkeley and Stanford. I'm also a board member here at Decode, the largest tech and entrepreneurship nonprofit co-hosted between Berkeley and Stanford. And I'm really excited to share with you a little bit more about how to identify the right messaging for your particular startup. So, three tactics that we'll be covering today. First of all, it is all about uncovering goals, struggles, and triggers for your particular users so that you can figure out the right messaging for them. You want to first start by finding users who recently tried to solve the problem that you are addressing. And you want to ask your users to walk you through how they made their decisions step by step. Help uncover their struggles, the solutions they've tried, what didn't work, and ask specific questions like, what will this purchase allow you to achieve? Why is that important to you? And what other options have you considered? And you want to clarify any vague answers that you might get. So, for example, if users say better, flexible, convenient, or all in one, ask specifically what that means for them. And you want to dig into the specific triggers that led to a certain decision or a certain activity that they took on. So, you want to ask questions like, what prompted you to act on that particular day? And going through this process in a deeper user interview will help you uncover the specific goals, struggles, and triggers that your users are working with, and will also help you understand the language that they prefer to use in describing this. And that takes us into specifically the next tactic, because after you're able to really tackle the specific language that your users identify with, then you want to turn these specific goals and struggles into headlines for your product. So your goal is to ideally complete certain sentences. So let me tell you a little bit more about what the goals and struggles that you're trying to fill in are. So for goals, your headline can be completing the sentence like, now you can, dot, 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 or I wish I could, dot, 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 or someday I hope to, dot, dot, dot. You want to make sure to understand the specific user language that they would use to describe this. You want to listen particularly to users when they're saying something like, I was trying to, dot, dot, dot. I needed a tool that can, dot, dot, dot. Or I wish it were easier to, dot, dot, dot. So all of these are examples of goals. And then let me give you a couple of examples of struggles as well. So this is really best for scenarios where people are reluctant to act. For example, like weight loss. They have a goal, but there's a certain friction that is holding them down. You want to listen to users when they say something like, I hate it when, dot, dot, dot. Or I'm tired of, dot, dot, dot. Or why can't I, dot, dot, dot. And here you want to use as much of first person comments and questions as much as possible. You want to skip the rhetorical questions. So you want to have a specific sentence like, none of my clothes fit anymore and I think about food constantly. And you want to identify that specific sentence as your user struggle. And you want to follow with a very clear, now you can, dot, 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 goal in the sub headline when you reach out as you try to really hone in on messaging for your product. You want to generally avoid vague terms that signal unclear value, like all in one, faster, revolutionary, convenient, because those are unclear. It's not very specific as to what you're delivering for users. So as you're reaching out to users, try to hone in on messaging that focus in on specific goals or tackle specific struggles. So that is tactic 2, and that brings us into thinking more after we've identified the goals and struggles and we're able to convert that into practical language. Then we want to really get into tactic 3, which is all about validating apprehension before you do A/B testing at scale. So generally speaking, how do you test for this? Well, you want to flash the headline for 5 to 6 seconds to your users, then ask, what did it say? There you're testing for whether or not your headline is readable. And then you want to ask questions like, what would it do for you? And in doing so, you're clarifying with the users whether or not it's clear this headline that you have designed is really clear and value add for your particular user. And then 3, you want to ask a question like, well, what does this mean in your own words? You're asking the user for their interpretation of what they read. So the reason why you want to flash this headline really quick when you're A/B testing your users is that you want to understand whether or not it's readable, clear, and users have the right interpretation just within a very short period of time, because that's most likely how much time they're going to be giving you. They're skimming through an email or an ad, however you use the messaging. And generally, you want to do this to at least 4 to 5 people per headline. So you're A/B testing which headline performs best. And if the users that you're showing this to can't explain it, of course, you want to make sure that messaging is improved before you actually use that. And you want to scale this with further A/B testing after you have a very clear text that you're actually using. And this is where you can start to test out meta ads for faster feedback versus testing it on landing pages, etc. And this is where you can test across different channels. And so today we've tackled the main question around how do you hone in and improve messaging for your particular startup. You want to start with 1, uncovering goals, struggles, and triggers for your particular users. 2, you want to land on very specific goals and struggles. You want to turn them into headlines where you can contextualize that into specific language that your users identify with. And then 3, you want to validate that your users understand it before you do A/B testing at scale, just by doing quick tests to see if users understand what you're trying to convey. And with that, we've answered some of the top tactics to tailor messaging and hone in messaging for your particular startup product. And if you want to learn more about other traps to avoid as you're doing this, as well as other tools that you can leverage in this process, please feel free to check out the full newsletter that we send out on a weekly basis, hyperlinked down below. In the meantime, please feel free to comment with any additional questions that you might have that you want us to tackle in a future week. And like and subscribe and share this video with friends that might benefit from more tactical tips from our community. With that, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in a future week. Thank you. Bye.